We do not have anybody, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. All right, so our first item on the agenda is the minutes. This is the consent agenda, which consists of the minutes from March 9th, 2020, and then the minutes from July 13th, 2020. So is there...
Just one comment on these, Mayor. I was not present at the March 9th meeting. Right now, the minutes say that I was. I already informed Carrie. She's going to make that amendment.
Okay, great. All right, so we'll get that. And then I guess maybe you would abstain from, or we can separate them out, right? Because you would abstain from the March 9th minutes, but approve the July 13th minutes.
Okay, so I'll make a motion if we're separating those out to approve the minutes for the March 9, 2020 Town Council meeting.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, and then minutes from the, so go ahead, somebody would like to make a motion for July 13th minutes?
I shall do that. I'll make a motion to approve the July 13, 2020 Town Council meeting minutes.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, so Jeremiah, did you want to abstain from the one? I'm not sure which one you want.
Yes, I want to abstain from the March 9th, Mayor.
Okay, perfect. All right.
Did we, all we did was made a motion on separating them. Did we make a motion on approving them? I just don't know.
Yeah, we were approving those, I think. Right. So that's why we pulled them out to approve them separately.
I'm
Okay.
sorry.
We will need a new second for my motion for the March 9.
Yep.
Second.
Yeah.
Second.
Okay. Pick one.
And then I'll abstain from March 9th.
You got it. Okay. That's what I thought. So I just wanted to double back. All right, great. Okay, so our first item this evening is our quarterly update from the downtown Sykesville connection. So I'm going to turn that over, I'm guessing, right? Julie's going to be handling that. Or Dana. Who's here to handle that?
It's Julie.
Okay.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me. Hope you had a good week. So I'm here to do the quarterly report for the Downtown Sykesville Connection. As you may have noticed, through the roller coaster of the pandemic, we did not do a full report as a Zoom meeting for the first quarter. So I put the quarter 1 and quarter 2 together for you for this presentation that should still be brief. So it's entitled Powering Through a Pandemic to Continue to Serve and Support Our Community. If you could go to the next slide, please, Carrie. So when the pandemic hit and you're a small nonprofit that does most of its income on large outdoor events, there's two ways of doing things, either curling into a ball in the corner of the office and subbing, or trying to unlearn everything we have done to date and the way we were doing it and recreate a model. And I think for us, it was important to remember who we were, how we were doing things, and what was our mission. We are a small Main Street program. We are building our capacities through the synergical approach of 4 different committees. As you may see here, Economic Vitality, Design, Promotion, Organization. We do also have Green and Clean. And that's the approach we're implementing. But most importantly, our mission is to improve the quality of life for residents, business owner, and visitor in downtown Sykesville. So what was important also, it was to review our order of priorities, because priorities don't mean the same thing in the context of a pandemic and when it's business as usual. So Carrie, if you can go to the next slide. The organization committee, which mission is to focus on the residents, and that had as a goal before the pandemic hit to focus on volunteer recruitment, volunteer appreciation, completely its mode to address the quality of life of the resident, but at that time it meant providing people with toilet paper and emergency food supplies. So we very quickly provided, with the help of the town manager, who allowed us to use the townhouse porch, a supply of everything that was needed for all of our residents with a very quick turnout. After that was implemented, it was time to think long-term and large-scale. So we partner up with other community partner like the Freedom District Citizen Association, Senator Fry Esther, and Commissioner Rothstein, and many other partners to build a structure called the Community Organization Active in Disaster that to this date is still serving 200 to 300 families every weekend at many different locations. St. Paul Church is a very strong partner of that group and still provide food to this date to people who need it. We continue growing our organization by interviewing, electing, and onboarding 3 new board members that you will see featured in the next town newsletter. And we also went ahead and worked to install the parklets that was most welcome as an extra outdoor seating to complement the ones that the town set up. If you can go to the next slide, please, Carrie. Our design committee had a bunch of murals in mind for this quarter, but after we realized that we were going to be on lockdown and that mental health and mood were going to be things to address, especially in young children that were isolated for their friends, maybe not understanding exactly what's happening, we completely reviewed our work plan and created Draw Your Main Street contest for little children. There was also an essay writing contest for small children, for older children. I have put in there some of the beautiful art pieces we received, including the one that won the prize and was exhibited at the post office when it reopened for 6 weeks. We also created a scavenger hunt because at that time we realized that people wanted to be out and about and needed activities to do that were engaging the whole family and maintaining social distancing. So the cards were available at the garden sign for people to pick up, and we were out of the little over 200 cards that we printed very fast, and we could see family on Main Street, still engaged with the Main Street community, being able to have quality time and still respecting public safety measure. We also completed our pole banner project, which in a pandemic and lockdown contest was a small miracle. And we were very pleased to donate large professional portfolio of pictures to smaller groups that we featured on those flags for them to use at their convenience. Next slide, please, Carrie. Our Economic Development Committee quickly realized that the focus had to stay on sustaining our business, keeping them in business. So we were one of the first community, not only in Maryland, but in a large portion of the country to offer on our web page, on our front page, a COVID business directory that was reflecting live each and every modification of business operation for all the downtown businesses, whether they switch from close to curbside pickup or delivery, that was available live on our website at any time. We also worked with the town to implement every program we were fed through the Maryland and National Main Street programs, through the very frequent touch meetings that we had together to just make sure that we were keeping our eyes on the financial health of the pumping art of our Main Street, which is its business community. And as you may know, we were the first community in Carroll County to implement that successfully, and I've gone through the first round of mini grant and also Main Street retrofit program. We participated to the Best Main Street contest and were awarded June 2nd, $25,000 that did not hurt after canceling the Art and Wine Festival. We unfortunately were not able to benefit from all the bells and whistles that award was supposed to bring, because there was a large ceremony that was supposed to bring some national TV channel downtown, as well as a TV show called Flip Your Town. We still have the hope that as soon as a vaccine is available and we can be together on Main Street again, the organizer will use the launch of the 2020 contest to host a celebration on our Main Street. Meanwhile, we will grant like it was our job. we were awarded $16,000 from the states that will be going as a matching fund from the mini grant program from the town. So that's quite a success because we were awarded 2 grants in that same bucket from the states, and that award will significantly cover the mini grant portions as a disbursement for the businesses. We also were awarded a tag project that will fund some of the projects of our organization. So we still can show that we are functioning, operating, and doing committee projects. Carroll Rebound Grant was fully funded at $4,100, and that was project driven. So we immediately reinvested this into marketing support for small businesses. We will also be able to take members of our team to training at the National Main Street Conference in 2021. We were fully awarded the NORI grant, that is also a state recovery grant, and it will be applied to operational expenses. We have applied to the Heartbeats, the Community Art Council, and we'll hear from them shortly. We have 2 other grants in our list for the early fall and are keeping an eye out for any opportunity for us to bring more funding to our organization. The Economic Development Committee, as I just to support the business community, organized 3 workshops. The first one was in partnership with Google to train businesses to use YouTube, to exploit YouTube to its fullest potential, because it's a free tool and it's the largest growing marketing platform. So we worked with Google. We had 47 participants to that meeting. It was very interesting and successful. This past Thursday, Lockable, which is a National Main Street Program ally, which means that organization has been vouched by the National Main Street Program as a marketing company that does marketing like a small historical Main Street should be doing. And we had a fantastic workshop. It was extremely interesting. We made it a hybrid between virtual and physical in order to accommodate everybody's level of comfort with the pandemic, and we had close to 50 people. And that workshop also included private consultation with some of our downtown businesses, as well as blog posts, and all of that was a huge success in my opinion. We also, as you can see at the bottom of your screen, created Main Street Bucks, and we are going to experience with that new gift card program that was created and designed to retain customer downtown Sykesville. We are still too small for a large company to design credit card for us that are dedicated to only downtown purchases. So we created our own gift card system with that money. And I cannot see the very last bullet point, but I believe there's one more under the toolbar there that says that we created another type of scavenger hunt to bring back again foot traffic on Main Street. Next slide, please. The Green Committee tried to pretend that the pandemic was not happening for a little while. And we kept gardening and doing all of those good things. And then we switched for sign up genius type of gardening event where we had only time slots spread out through the evening in small groups and only families wearing masks, but we were still able to host some of our good bug, bad bug training from the Green Committee and other of those educational programs. We also have completed the 2 training of the Keep Maryland Beautiful migration process. And I'm very excited to report that soon we're going to have that groups that will be composed of Park and Recs, Public Works, and the Green Committee of the DSC that will work together and be, through that program, eligible for more grant funding for littering program and other of those green initiative fundings nationwide. Next slide, please. Finally, our Green Promotion Committee, after reorganizing the Art and Wine Festival 3 times, decided that it was time to decided to put the focus on virtual. So we created a short video program that made the cover of the Carroll County Time that was meant to keep the business community engaged with their customers, where they were speaking from their home, and there was a human component to it. It was very well received, and it really helped keeping business owner talk to their customer, being seen by their customers, and engage with their customers. We created a t-shirt sale that the proceeds were used to buy the prize for a great contest that we call the This Corona Dance Off, because you need to keep a sense of humor. And we created a new farmers market model meant to keep giving a venue for our farmers market vendors that really needed to have a venue to make an income, and also provide our community with the opportunity of organic and green products. So Carrie, just if you would be able to start that movie, that's one of my favorite from the This Corona. I think it's a minute long, but I think it's important to see what we did for the mood of our community. With volume would be better.
I don't know, even without volume, it's pretty entertaining.
It's really more fun with the volume. But those videos, we had thousands and thousands of views towards the end. It was a 5-week contest for people to get out, forget about the pandemic, have laugh, and we did. So maybe Stacy, you can sing it for us. So it's Uptown Funk, correct? The name of it was a minute-long video that made it to the final, and that included everyone.
Yes, it was Bruno Mars' Uptown Funk with a cameo by our one and only Sergeant Sean Kilgore.
Who I thought was going to dance. I was a little disappointed about that, but I guess you cannot have it all.
No. I'm sure he's disappointed too.
Next slide, please. And finally, as many of you know, because you were there and it was really awesome to see you, we hosted our first Coolest Golf Tournament. And as you can see on that side, it was decided it's an annual event now. And I want to once again thank Leslie George Rowe and Denise Rowe, our 2 newest volunteers, because they had to plan an event in 2 different languages, Franglish and English. And I need to also acknowledge our event coordinator, Troy, who was hired just before the pandemic and was sent home after his first week at the office, and had to be baptized by fire, the way that he was just pushed into new things, and he did a fabulous job. And so that golf tournament, we need to also thank the town for stepping up and supporting us again as the lead sponsor. It was a fantastic event. I think fun was had by all, and we're going to do it again. Next slide, please. And that's it. So as you see, those beautiful masks, some will be awaiting you in your mailbox at the townhouse as of tomorrow. The other one already got their mask delivered or provided at the event. And I think in conclusion to my presentation, I just want to say that we learned so much. There's 2 ways of seeing what we went through. For sure, it was not fun. For sure, we experienced challenge and difficulties, but it taught us so much. New ways of doing things, strategy we would never have thought of. And I think we're going to grow very strong of what we had. And when we're going to come back to normal, we're going to have so much more to offer to this community. Thank you for your attention.
Thanks, Julie.
Yep, thank you, Joy, and we really do appreciate all the efforts that you and the Downtown Sykesville Connection have been doing during this difficult time to figure out creative ways to get through this, and so the golf thing was a lot of fun. We had a blast. First time ever I'd golfed in my entire life. Got raging sunburn because I thought it was going to be cloudy, but other than that, it was a really good time. So thank you so much for that. I'm glad it's going to be an annual event because that'll probably be my second time golfing, I guess. Maybe, I don't know if we get out. But at any rate, And then I just wanted to let you know, I just saw today, there's another grant opportunity coming out from DHCD. I don't know if you saw it for nonprofits. They allocated another $1 million
Yes. But
for,
we're not eligible for that one because that's 506c3 and we are 501c3.
I thought it said 501. Are you sure?
But 501, the one that was extended is the NORI ones that we already were awarded that I showed in my presentation. We got fully funded for the maximum award.
I'll have to double check because I thought it said 501 on the one that came out today.
Because then you probably saw the extension to the one we were awarded. The NORI, we were fully funded by that one.
Okay, I'll double check and see if that's the same thing. Yeah. But anyway, okay, well, but thank you so much. We appreciate it. Are there any questions? Anybody got any questions for Julie?
Just a great golf event. It was one of the best events I've been to in a long time. Had a lot of fun.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for all the behind scenes that we don't see that you do that make this town amazing. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Okay. All right. So our next item, let me get my agenda back open here. All right, is to consider and discuss and act on the bond reduction for Parkside at Warfield. And I guess, Joe, did you want to go ahead and give some background on that one, or?
Sure. So again, just a bond reduction request here at Parkside. Again, it's a pretty standard form here in that typically anytime there's a new development that comes online, they are required to post performance bond to cover any public improvements that are going to be happening on site. So when Parkside was first began, there was a $3.8 million bond that they were required to post. So over the last 2 years, they've actually been installing a lot of this infrastructure. And once the infrastructure goes into the ground, there's no real need to have, I guess, that performance bond, since again they've performed or they've installed that infrastructure. So over the course of the development, there are kind of benchmarks where they look at the amount of infrastructure that's gone into the ground and then how much bond they're actually holding, and then try to balance that with the reduction requests. So month and a half ago, they did ask for a 57% reduction in the bond amount. Again, we did have our town engineers, consulting engineers, take a look at that request. And being a more standard practice is really just to cut the bond in half once they reach certain milestones, which they have done. So our consulting engineers and staff concurs that instead of a $3.8 million bond, they are ready for basically a $1.9 million bond, or 1.898878. Again, like I said, our consulting engineers have taken a look at it. They are recommending the 50% reduction, and staff concurs. And so it's ready for council tonight to make a decision on reducing that bond amount.
Does anybody have any questions? Go ahead.
I do. Just for clarification, because I don't want to assume.
Sure.
Some line items don't have a percentage completed, but the initial amount versus the current amount is 50%. So I'm assuming that's a 50% reduction, even though it doesn't say 50%.
Yeah, to clarify that a little bit as well. The whole bond amount is really just a general dollar amount. It doesn't necessarily have to go to specifically what's there on the spreadsheet. The spreadsheet's more of a guide than anything else. So again, just because we're reducing it from 3.8 to 1.9, give or take, that bond money can be used for any of the infrastructure that still needs to be completed. So even if it doesn't look like any work has done on a particular item, bond money can still go for that if for some reason the contractor doesn't perform when it gets turned over to the town.
Gotcha. Thank you for the clarification.
Sure.
And that addresses my only question as well. So I'm all set.
Anybody else have any questions on this item? Okay, well, somebody would like to.
I'll make a motion to approve the 50% bond reduction for the Parkside at Warfield, with the new bond being.
Sorry.
It's okay. The new bond being set at $1,898,878.
Okay, and then we got a second. So all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. All right, so that passes. Okay, and our next item is the strategic demolition grant. They would like to change the scope of the request. So again, Joe, do you want to go over this item? And
Sure. Again, just for clarification, it is a strategic demolition grant through the Department of Housing and Urban Development. However, or community development. However, there is no demolition that's going to be happening from this grant. But as some of you likely remember, last year around this time, the town, in partnership with the developers there of Warfield, applied for the strategic demolition grant for some remediation and stabilization and remediation efforts for some of the 9 vacant buildings that are still out there in Warfield. So over the course of the last few months, after we had received word that the grant was awarded to the amount of $750,000, and I know we talked about some of this last month in executive session, but the developer is working through some potential tax implications as well as historical tax credit impacts that this grant may have. So what they want to do is, instead of using it for the initial or the original scope of work for building renovation, they want to use it for wetlands remediation. So as some of you may remember, late last year, the town did approve a wetlands remediation plan to expand the wetlands there in Carey Dorsey Park, and then fill in the wetlands that had been created on parcels A and B to make them development ready. So again, instead of using it for building remediation, they're going to try to get parcels A and B ready for potential development and do the wetlands work that was already approved to be done there in Carey Dorsey Park. So again, they did work with the Department of Housing and Community Development to work through the potential scope change. We have received word from the state that they are supportive of the new scope of work, and have asked the town to weigh in before they prepare the final grant agreement for town signature. The only other item on this is exactly how the administration of this grant would work. One of the requests that did happen was that they had asked that the developers had asked the town direct pay the contractor for the work, assuming the scope is approved. However, I don't believe that was the understanding when the grant was going to be applied for. It was actually going to be the developer would pay the contractor, and then they would request reimbursement through the town, and then the town would of course submit those reimbursement requests to the state. So I would, if the council is supportive of the scope of work change, I would just simply add that I believe the way the administration would work would be as it was proposed originally, and that the town wouldn't come out of pocket to pay any of the contractors. It would simply come to us just for reimbursement.
So I have, if I may, unless someone else wants to start, I have a few questions.
Sure.
So Joe, how does the new scope of work, or the proposed new scope of work, affect the historic tax credit differently than if the original or the intended scope of work remains in place?
I think it has something to do with the amount. The only work that would qualify for the historic tax credit is work that they would pay for out of pocket. So if they use grant funding to do any work on these buildings, it reduces the overall amount that they're able to get through the historic tax credit. At least that's the way it was explained to me.
So it's okay.
If I can intercede, you may recall that there are pathways and significant improvements regarding wetlands in the town park area, bridges, etc. That's where this money is going to be directed now, not to the historic buildings, according to the blurb.
Right.
So,
no, I understand that.
Okay, so it wouldn't qualify for the historic tax credits, because it's not going into the buildings.
Right. No, we're saying that that was one of the reasons why they wanted to shift the scope of work from doing the work on the buildings to the wetlands remediation, was because it was going to have an impact. If they had used this grant funding on the buildings, it would reduce the amount that they could potentially qualify for from a historical tax credit perspective.
So somebody's done some math on their end, obviously, to say that it wouldn't come out in the wash, and that it's to their benefit financially to receive the historic tax credits associated with improving these vacant 9 buildings than it is to use $750,000 of money afforded to them right now through this grant to improve those buildings.
Yes, I think that and the combination of the income tax impact, if they do use these grant funds for the building as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that in combination with the historic tax credit makes it more viable to use for the wetlands remediation.
Okay. So well, you guys have more questions. I have an opinion that I want to state, but I would like to hear if anyone else has any more questions, and it might lend itself to more conversation or dialogue.
So Joe, I think I remember looking at this original grant application and the buildings were dilapidated. So no work has been done on these buildings up to date currently. Is that correct?
None that I'm aware of, no.
Okay.
Can we make a stipulation that if we approve the $750,000 to be steered towards the wetlands mitigation, that the bond reduction that we just approved be used for the stabilization of those buildings?
Those are two different items. That one
two different
benefits,
projects.
Elm Street development and is not really connected with the Warfield Development Corporation. Does that make sense? So the people that are doing the townhouses, that's for them. That's a different entity. The bond reduction. Gotcha. Yeah.
So that's for the builder.
Correct. Yeah. It's the developer really, the Elm Street development. So
okay.
So that's for them because they're the ones doing like all the infrastructure and the roads.
Okay.
And the project itself, the builder is again separate from them, but that's not they don't have to take care of that. The developer does. Yeah. Understood.
Thank you.
So that wouldn't apply, Anna, to that, but is there any other comments or questions about this?
I'm forgetting some of the wetland mitigation. Are there any benefits to the citizens in reference to that?
Again, the wetland mitigation recovers some of the land in parcels A and B to make them buildable because there's wetlands that run through those 2 parcels. So that property then becomes viable to be developed. In exchange for that, the town agreed to give them land in the park where they would do the mitigation, and we get a significant public works project out of that in the way of additional pathways and streams and bridges, et cetera, that make the park more attractive for use. So I think it's look at it as a public works parks improvement project, which also gives the developer land that it can now develop.
But that was always in the deal, in the negotiation, that has nothing to do with this reassignment of the scope of work, correct, Dennis?
This is just a question of where the funds are coming from.
Correct. So just to clarify my question, and then you can clarify your answer. I'm sorry I didn't phrase it correctly. The wetlands remediation is being basically, they're filling in wetlands so they can build on it. And in order for that to be okay, we said, here's some other property and basically make wetlands or at least more nature friendly area out of it. And that's independent of whether or not they use this funding for that, correct?
Correct. They have, correct. It's part of the project, already part of the project. So this is just how do they pay for it?
Right. Okay. And that's how I understood all of this. My concern is that reallocating or I should say, changing the scope of work, only, in my opinion, serves to demotivate and de-incentivize the developer to invest in the vacant buildings and improve them when this is going to allow their development to finish as far as building the homes, correct?
No, it doesn't have to do with the homes. This is,
Not-
this
not
is,
the
This
homes.
this is for the commercial parcels.
Right, for parcels A and B, correct.
Okay, got it. A and B, of course. So that's the commercial properties. So in essence, using the $750,000 on the wetlands mitigation allows them to finish or continue to build, if not finish their commercial properties on parcel A and B. All the while, the vacant buildings still continue to go untouched, correct?
It will be untouched from this grant funding, yes.
Correct.
So-
Have we a proposal or a plan from the developer as far as a timeline for an investment in any of the vacant buildings, the historical buildings right now? Do we have any kind of information from them? I know we talked about that in the executive meeting.
We do not right now. We do not have any timeline as far as when they may start that construction.
So for this funding, I still have the same question. So in reference to what do the citizens get and when do they get it? If the scope of work is changed, what's the answer to that? Would we see any additional trails or bridges sooner rather than later? Is that what we would be seeing?
Yeah, I think the work on the parkland and the expansion of wetlands and the additional trails would actually, again, I don't have a specific timeline as far as when construction would happen, but this would facilitate that moving forward, sooner rather than later.
there's only certain time periods when they can do this work based on Corps of Engineer criteria for disturbing wetlands, et cetera. So it would tie into the time of year when the funds are available. And I don't remember now. They tried to meet that schedule last year and didn't meet it.
Okay, I certainly respect what Stacy you're saying is that we'd really like to see the buildings renovated.
Stabilized, right?
Yeah, stabilized and renovated. And that's the priority over parklands. But this seems to be something that we could get something for the citizenry sooner rather than later. And then maybe my last comment about it is that it's going to take a lot more than $750,000 to stabilize those buildings. In my unprofessional opinion.
Oh no, it definitely is.
Yeah, I think the estimate in the original grant application, if I remember it correctly, was around $14 million to get all of the remediation that's necessary, environmental remediation that's necessary for all 9 of those buildings, plus some of the stabilization that's required.
Any other comments, questions on this? Anybody else?
So Joe, would we need to make a motion?
Yes, just basically approving the new scope of work.
All right, I'll make a motion to approve the new scope of work and keep the town as, how would you want to recommend the town's, I kind of like what you said here, serve as administrator. Want to keep that?
Yeah, just basically make sure that the town is not direct paying the contractors, that we can serve as the administrator and that we will request for reimbursement from the state just as soon as the invoices are prepared. But at no time should the town be on the hook for paying those paying the contractors that are performing the work. So again, if there's any delay in any kind of funding that may be coming from the state, as far as from a reimbursement standpoint, the developers on the hook to pay those contractors, not the town.
All right, so the town would serve as the administrator of the grant.
Correct.
That would be the end of my motion.
A second.
All those in favor?
I actually,
Aye.
before we vote on that, I would also like to make a motion, and maybe we can talk about that before we find a second if we do or don't. Is that
Well,
okay?
There's a motion on the floor, but do you want to amend that, or are you okay with hearing what she's got before we take a vote, Al?
Yeah, that's okay. Sure.
Okay, go ahead, Stacy. Then we'll table that for a second. Go ahead.
Thank you. I would like to consider. I'd like to make a motion that before we actually vote on whether or not to amend these, I guess the assignment of the grant funds as far as the scope of work, instead of amending the scope of work in absence of a plan or a timeline, some sort of communication from the developer with respect to an expectation we can have of them for when they would foresee beginning any kind of stabilization on any one of the buildings, and how they plan to approach that. I don't feel comfortable granting this change in scope of work from what we originally had agreed would be the reason or the purpose of this grant, without knowing what they're going to do or when they're going to do it. We thought they were going to have $750,000 to use for something, and now they're not going to use it, and we have no idea when or how they're going to be able to approach the goal of what this grant was written for in the first place. Does any of that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely, it makes sense. So I guess I had a meeting with Roger Connolly, who's principal of the Warfield development, as you guys know, and the conversations that basically the gist of that conversation was that he needs to get a pro forma, right, a new pro forma, because the current development as it is sketched out in the PEC that was approved by the town, the planning commission, and was part of the contract, does not appear to be feasible, right? So they want to change that, like, so they're working on, and then they need $100,000 to facilitate that effort. So I don't know where, they're working on figuring out where that money's going to come from to come up with a new pro forma. I told him exactly what you said, is we really can't be doing this stuff in a vacuum. We need to have, a path forward. And I explained that to him. I said, the challenge with the council is we don't know where we're going. So it's really hard to do these pieces along the way because, we're not sure where this is going. So, I think he understood that, but again, when we'll get that pro forma, when we'll have a new plan is all up in the air, right now. So that's kind of where this is at the moment. So again,
is there some kind of a deadline for this reassignment of scope of work, that we couldn't wait another month and get them in front of us and have that conversation with some sort of update? You can see where I'm going to vote if this is if Al's motion remains. But I would encourage the council to consider what I've stated, and we'll leave it at that.
I mean, I can tell you this, at least from a timing perspective, is in my conversations with the DHCD was that they're basically getting ready to start the next cycle of grants for the strategic demolition grants.
Okay.
So they would like to get this tied up as soon as possible. Now, that said, if we tell them, we're still working through some details on the project itself, so we needed another 30 days, to approve the scope, they would be open to that. They would certainly, they're not going to pull the grant back, if we just ask for 30 more days. However, that being said, I'm not sure another 30 days, the Warfield folks are going to be able to have a specific timeline prepared for you either. So it's like, even if we did wait another 30 days, I'm not sure you're going to have the information you're looking for.
I have a question too.
I'm sorry.
I have a question too, and that is, Jana, has anybody at least sent this information over to the Planning Commission voting members to keep them aware? I know doesn't require their vote, but they have felt before that things have gone on around them. This is something we ought to notify them of, just so they feel they've been involved.
We can certainly inform the Planning Commission. We have not told the Planning Commission that there was a potential scope of work change to the grant.
But I'm pretty sure the Planning Commission saw the park, what was going to happen at the park and the wetlands there.
Oh yes, that was
they
all
most
part
certainly
of the,
did, and we all were in agreement with that. Nobody's questioning that this is the process. I'm questioning the funds used to do it, and the de-incentive. Listen, they removed the one person from their corporation that had any experience, wherewithal, and knowledge, if I may, about the restoration of historic buildings and specifically one on that campus. And that spoke volumes to me. And this is another, in my opinion, example of, you know, a change in the prioritization of this project. And I'm not comfortable with it.
I understand.
So I have two questions. One of them Stacy asked earlier, which I don't think was answered. Does this scope of work or grant really have a time box to it? And the second question, while you think about that one, is in reference to what is the likelihood that we get additional grant funds if this is not allocated to some project and we've started, whether we started work or at least we have a plan for the work?
Yeah, so I mean, I can tell you this: the grant is typically there are 2-year timeframes on any grant. So once the grant agreement is signed, there's a 2-year window where you can complete the work. As far as whether or not additional grant funding would be received, I could probably tell you this. Anytime you ask for money and you're awarded grant funding, regardless of what the scope is, and if you potentially turn that down, that would reflect negatively on a future grant application. So it's always good to show success in one form or another. So if you're awarded a grant and you use it for whatever the agreement is ultimately agreed to, and then you apply for additional funding, you're more likely to get additional funds for those types of projects. So, you know, whether or not the scope is changed or not, you know, the state is going to want to see movement and success toward the money that they've awarded, if they're going to be asked for additional funds in the future.
Is there an opinion from the town staff that this change in scope would be seen favorably by the state? Or is there a possibility, since we're not using it for the actual rehabilitation of the 9 buildings, that it'd be seen negatively by the state? Is there any analysis on that?
There is. The state has actually already weighed in on it, and they're supportive of the scope of work change.
So here's one of the issues, and I just opened this up for conversation. I don't know if we're ever going to get a $14 million grant. I highly doubt it. And so if we get little bits and pieces, how does this developer do the project? If all we get is, say, $500,000 a year or $1 million a year. So will they have to phase this out over, I mean, that's a lot of years
Yes.
in order to get this done. Is like, what's the plan here? I don't understand the plan. And maybe that gets to your point, Ian. They need to come before us, and Stacy, you said the same thing. They need to come before us and tell us what their plan is, because this plan that's currently in place doesn't make a lot of sense to me. But that's why I seconded Al's motion, is because at least with 750,000, we can get something. And it seems as though the state has weighed in and likes the progress. So that's maybe a different perspective, Stacy, because I really do respect your opinion about, we really want to focus on getting these buildings rehabilitated.
Yeah, can I intercede for just a second?
No, I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
It would seem that this use of the funds to improve the park is difficult money to get. Okay, it's part of public works that's off-site, that doesn't go into property improvement, and so it would be the last component that might get done if you were trying to do it in an economic development process. And yet there's a benefit from an economic development component because it makes parcels A and B marketable. And if you buy the original theory, which was presented, look, we're going to develop this entire site, not just save the historic buildings, and the value of the buildings will be improved because of all that's going around, then it seems to me you've made a park improvements which we wouldn't otherwise get. You've prepared parcels A and B for ultimate use, and you've created a potential for activity which will help increase the value of the historic buildings. If we're waiting for somebody to come up with a plan to improve the historic buildings and use this $750,000, my concern is we've waited 2.5 years or 2 years already, and they haven't done a thing. So perhaps we should consider trying to get, what we can get out of the infrastructure improvements as we go along, and then try and solve the problem of the buildings.
I mean,
thought.
right. So, I hear you. I guess my only counterpoint to that is on an A and B parcel, those are going to be brand new buildings and stormwater would be part of that conversation. Whenever you're building new construction, stormwater and infrastructure is part of the conversation. It just is part of the cost of doing business. But, I wanted the council to work their way through this and see, what their thoughts were on it, but so it's a challenging project all the way around. And I would say we're many, many months away from getting a revised comprehensive plan, so you're kind of left doing these little piecemeal decisions until that happens. I mean, because they're going to need to do another comprehensive pro forma study, come up, and that takes cash. Then they're going to have to come up with some sort of plan, and then they're going to obviously present that to us. Hopefully, I mean, that's the hope, right? That there's a real buildable plan here, whatever that looks like. We don't know what that looks like right now, but anyway.
Hey, Ian, do you know, has the developer independently of any cooperative effort with the towns applied for any grants for this project for the historic buildings?
Well, I know they were working very hard on trying to get some funding from the Maryland planning. They were working with them to try to get like a $14 million type thing worked out with the state where it was like a project. And Joe, you can share a little bit. We spoke to Secretary McCord, and they've done a lot of efforts to try to do that. So to their credit, they did try to work on a change in the tax things and stuff. I just, in this environment, I don't know now how realistic getting any additional funds is. I mean, I guess they're still hopeful, but it's going to be really tough to find some cash for anything new or different, right now. But
yeah, they have been, not directly with the town, but certainly with the state. They have been working to try to expand some of the historic tax credit programs and the funding that would be available to those buildings through changes in legislation. Unfortunately for them, a lot of their efforts got pushed to the wayside the minute the legislature kind of shut down for the response to COVID-19. So a lot of those efforts that they'd been working on for the last year or so got the door shut on them pretty quick.
I just want to make a comment that with past history, I'm afraid that if we approve this, the stabilization of those buildings are going to be kicked down the can again and again and again until there is nothing left and those buildings are not salvageable.
I would tell you that $750,000 would go a long way into closing up the gaping holes in the roofs of those buildings. Like, I'm not talking about stabilizing 9 buildings for $14 million. I'm talking about stabilizing or at least sealing up from the weather 1 or 2 or 3 of the buildings. Like, that's why we all agreed to this grant. Like, this grant opportunity was brought to our attention. We all agreed to it with a particular scope of work. And now they've decided that, oh, wait, I've made my point. And I agree with you, Anna.
right. And it's going to be, I mean, I guess the challenge, and I think, correct me if I'm wrong, just as a point here to make, wasn't this going to be specifically for the F and W building, or this wasn't allocated for all?
No, it wasn't.
The scope of work was all 9 of the historic structures out there, I think, with emphasis on building F.
That's right.
Right. And I mean, we have been trying to get a building up and running. One of those buildings was kind of promised to be done. We talked about that before, but and I don't know, I guess I'm a little frustrated that every time we get some money, then they find a way to say that the money's not good. Like, you know, it doesn't apply to the tax credit. So it almost feels to me like in the future, if it's going to affect the tax credits, should we even be trying to get money like this until we somehow use those tax credits? Because every time we have this conversation, they say if we put this money in, that will reduce their tax credit or it'll have a tax implication. So how are we ever going to get monies that don't affect that? You know,
We
like
won't.
is there any way to even do that? Or, you know, I don't know, right? Because or is that always going to come up?
I think we're setting an awful precedent.
Yep, exactly. I would like some show of effort. $750,000 is going to go and be spent like nothing on a building. So if you're saying that they can't get another grant until the 750 is spent, they can do that in 6 months. And it's well within the 2 years that they've got this grant. I would like to see some effort. And if they show us something that we want, then in turn, I think next time they come up with a suggestion that we're more willing to work with them. Because I don't see them working with us at all.
Well, and Roger tends to say the same thing. He seems like the council's not working with him. He's like, I've been putting up effort. I don't know why you guys keeps trying to stop me along the way. I mean, I really don't see how we're doing that, but that's the
I was going to say, that I don't remember another conversation even remotely close to this in a year and a half. So,
right. I mean, I don't think that that's fully accurate. I'm just sharing with you what the developer.
No, I know. Thank you for doing that. I appreciate it.
Right. So, I mean, yeah. So. So anyway, all right, so back, do you want to go ahead then with the motion now that the motion's on the floor? So Al made a motion to approve the change. I think Jeremiah had seconded it, correct? All right,
Correct.
so
That's correct.
are we ready to take a vote or is there any more questions, comments? Okay, let's take a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so we got 2. Any opposed?
Aye.
Aye.
I'm going to oppose too. And then any abstentions? All right. So is Mark there? Did he vote or did he?
It was
drop?
3-3, Mr. Mayor.
It's 3-3,
Okay. That's funny.
which means the motion fails. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Time and the motion nails. All right. We're going to catch it. Okay. All right. All right. So that's that. All right. Thank you. And then
Wait, I'm sorry, real quick, just to make sure I got that right. I have Jeremiah, Al, and Mark for it, and Anna, Stacy, and Ian against it. Am I
Correct.
missing somebody?
Leo's not here.
Leo is not here.
Leo.
Leo's not there.
Thank you. Okay, forgot all about him.
right. He was going to try to join us, but he said the internet is very spotty sometimes. So
He's going to be very disappointed that you forgot about him, Carrie.
I feel really bad now.
And those who voted no, my yay was barely yay, but I did say do it.
it's okay. No, well, thank you guys for the spirited conversation on this. I know it's
I
important.
need your consent on a few items.
Okay.
Well, Mayor, before we move on, since obviously that motion failed, is there another motion that wants to be made, or is there some other direction you would like to give staff on how to proceed with this request?
Well, that's a good point. I mean,
So maybe some discussion in reference to that. I mean, I think Stacy made a good point earlier that we need to have a schedule in order to move forward. Is there a motion out there? And, you know, I can try to make a motion that we would move forward with this change in scope contingent on receiving a schedule from, I'm not sure if it's the developer or if it's the owner. Someone please help me out there.
so
Whoever needs to provide the schedule to us.
Yeah.
the developer owner is the same thing on this parcel. So yeah, it would be them. I mean, so, but clarify, I guess, what you mean, because I don't think that would apply. Like we're never going to get like a scope of work like from them yet, because they really, like I said, they need to do these studies. They're going to take time. This grant opportunity will have expired before we get the next clarity of where they want to build this. I think, I mean, unless some things really start happening fast. But so I don't.
You're basically saying that there's no real feasible way in order to get to go through the steps that you identified earlier within the time that the grant is out there.
Right. I don't see that happening. I mean, based
And
on
I'll pull back the motion. The motion doesn't make sense.
Okay. So, I mean, you're pulling back a motion to change something, you mean?
No, I pulled back my own motion that I tried to put out on the floor just a second ago.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm sure the developer is hesitant to give us a schedule because then we're going to try to hold them to it. That's just my opinion, or not. And I mean, I think I'm a little concerned now that we've been past that motion, that if they do go ahead and improve the buildings, it'll affect their tax credit, so they'll be financially worse off than they were before. That's just
I would like to see those numbers on paper, because all I'm being told is that it's not that the juice isn't worth the squeeze. This 750 doesn't convey to $750 in tax credits. That it's the combination, if I understood Joe correctly, of the impact it has in form of income tax combined with historic tax credits. Correct, Joe?
That's my understanding, yes.
So again, like, these are all just arbitrary, like, little sound bites that they're throwing out as to justify their request. That's how I'm seeing it anyway, to justify their request for this change in scope of work to use, or the scope for the use of those funds. And
so the grants, I'm sorry, grants, according to them, and I haven't done the research, they said that recently the laws changed. I don't know if that's the case, but the grants now have to be treated as income to them. So, so they don't want to take the money and get and pay taxes on half of it, essentially. And what the part where they were asking us to direct pay was basically to eliminate that tax consequence to them. I think. I mean, the summary isn't enough for me to get it, but I'm trying to repeat the essence of what I was told.
Then we need clarification on that portion of their request, because if it's a matter of who's paying out the money and who's getting reimbursed, and that's going to be advantageous, but only come out of our coffers temporarily, that's a separate conversation for us to have. That has nothing to do, in my opinion, with the reallocation of the scope of work, or the reallocation of the funds according to a different scope.
So I got an idea, and I know this won't play well probably with them, but it's certainly an idea somehow to facilitate it. Is if we were to maybe approve this, right, for infrastructure for A and B, that when anything happens on A and B, we get reimbursed this money into the escrow of $750,000 to increase, like whenever something's built on A and B, right? This money would be allocated, 750 would be of that sale, right? Would go into building F or parcel D. Because I think that's the concern, right? Is there's no money going into parcel D. So we're willing to make these switches maybe, but I think my concern is that we're never going to get any money into parcel D. So if they were able to sell $2 or $3 million building at A and B, I think, and this would help them from the tax perspective too, because then they could use this money, like they're saying, wouldn't count against the tax credits, but then they could just put up money. We don't want it back. We just want to ensure it goes into the building. So it's his money. I don't know. What do you think, Dennis? Does that sound crazy? Or is there some way to facilitate something like that that would make any sense at all?
There's enough pieces there to have a discussion. He right now he hates the escrow, so it might be difficult. I'm sure Joe hates the escrow. So
right. Well, nobody likes the escrow, but I mean, is there some way that it doesn't even have to come up like in an escrow? You don't have to put the money up now, but if you combine with selling that parcel, then you have to spend money in F, or I like F and W because they're the closest to getting done. But I'm just trying to find some way that we can help them, but at the same time achieve the goal that we want of getting some money into D. Anything we can get, because I know 750 is peeing on a forest fire, but we're just not getting, nothing's coming into that, and it's so frustrating. And then I don't know that the grants seem to be counterproductive sometimes.
Well, and I think, if I can just jump in and say, I think I've heard loud and clear what the council wants. They need some sort, you guys need some sort of plan as to how they're going to proceed with the historic renovation of the buildings that are there. And without some certainty as to when that's going to happen and how that's going to happen, you're reluctant to make changes to grants or the project itself. So again, I mean, I think, this gives us, something to go back to the developers with and try to work something out between now and maybe our next meeting, where, maybe we can at least get some information in front of council that makes you all comfortable with the potential scope of work change. And if not, then, you might just have to let the money go and keep working with the developer on, finding out what type of project is going to be beneficial from both their perspective and accomplish the goals that the town has laid out.
And then suffer the, I'm sorry.
Can we find out why the town or why the developer won't do something to the buildings?
Oh, it's the cost. I mean, and again, that's always going to be the answer. It's the amount of money that's necessary to bring those buildings up to a usable standard is much higher than, I guess.
See, even if I knew how much each one of those buildings individually, not combined, all 9 of them, if I knew or had some general idea even of how much $750,000 would do to any one of those buildings, or like I had mentioned earlier, because some of them are really just open to the weather. And I mean, I know that the G building was in bad shape, and it cost over $1 million to bring up to speed, but this is 3/4 of that. And I'm not expecting a building to be completed with 750 or even half completed in some cases, but there's a way to use that. And if we can lessen the tax burden in some fashion and see to it that $750,000 is used for its intended purpose, then I'm down with that. But I think we are just talking arbitrary numbers if we don't know what building could benefit from that amount of money and what would those benefits be. And I don't even think they've investigated that, because they don't want the money received because they don't want to pay taxes on it. If I'm not mistaken, that's the message I'm hearing.
Yeah.
Well, and here's the overall construct that I've been hearing, right? The current plan is not feasible. So they don't want to invest any more money into an unfeasible plan that's financially unfeasible to make money or to even happen, right? That's the sense I'm getting. So they're saying the PEC that in its current shape is not doable. So I can't build that and make any money. So what I need to do is find out what components I need in the soup to make money, right? Is that you can expect that to be significant housing density change. But we don't know all the pieces, right? So in the absence of what that soup looks like, but that's the issue. They don't want to put money in because the current PEC does not work. So they feel like if we put any money into these buildings right now, there's a strong possibility I'll never get it back or I'll never make any money, right? If they continue down this current with the same piece. And then the town, of course, would have to approve any change that comes. And if we don't like the change, the look of that new proposal that makes money for them, well then, and the more leverage we have during that decision, the worse off they are. I think that should be a thought in the back of your mind. As your leverage gets reduced, the more likely you are to make a concession, right? Because, you only have one option, right? Or very few options, so that's been the challenge all along with this project. Not a lot of options, they're the only guy at the table right now. So those are the challenges.
So again, right now, I think, just to, put a bow on this conversation is we kind of, or at least I feel like I understand what the council's looking for from an information standpoint, and we can go back and work with the developer a little bit to see if we can't get something in front of council that makes you comfortable potentially approving the scope of work change maybe at our first meeting in September. Again, otherwise, if we can't figure out how to present that information, or if they're not willing to share it, then we'll have to make the determination on what to do with the grant funding then.
And see if there's some way to get a creative plan put together where we can get
Sure.
reimbursed on any subsequent development of A and B, because I really think that would be helpful if we could get, I don't know what that even looks like, but if we could think about a way to have that discussion and then have that as an option, because I don't think any of us don't want to let this money just go away, right? So
Right.
let's try to figure out how to utilize it and then work with them to try to figure out a plan for the future of the project too at the same time. Because obviously if they're going to come up with another set of conversations, then A and B will always be part of those conversations too. And it's deferred money. So
Okay.
I would like that option.
Okay.
If I could emphasize something that Stacy brought up again, I don't expect them to spend enough money on this building to make it pretty and inhabitable and rentable, but I would like to see at least the hole in the roof fixed.
Right. That would make sense.
Okay.
All right. So I guess you got your idea of how to proceed, right, Joe? So you're good.
I do.
Okay. All right. So our next item is let's see here. Get my agenda. This is for the strategic demolition grant agreement, right?
Yeah, that's the one we just did.
That's the one we just did. We're all done there, Mr. Mayor, with
Okay,
new
we're done
business.
with that. Gotcha.
Moving on to announcements.
Moving on to announcements. Gotcha. All right. So our announcements is the next Mayor and Town Council meeting is on Monday, September 14th, right here on Zoom again, I think, right? We didn't say that yet. We've been hopeful to get back in person, but it's
Still working on it.
We're still working on it.
We'll
right?
see.
We want to make sure things quiet down and things are safe before we jump right back in. So it'll likely be Zoom, but we'll keep you posted. We have volunteer opportunities available on the Historic District Commission, the Sykesville Rec, Police Auxiliary, and for maybe 2021, a crossing guard, right? Because I don't know that we're going to have a lot of kids crossing the school right now. You can email town@sykesville.net for more information about volunteering with the town. There is still time to respond to the 2020 census. So I got to make sure I got the updated copy there, Carrie, because that was on my paper version. So what is that date? Is that October? I think you updated this, correct?
September 30th.
September
30th.
Okay, so it's been extended to September 30th. So please, if you haven't responded, please do so. We're very proud of Carroll County has an excellent response rate. And I think Sykesville was in the top 2 there. I looked on the chart, the latest chart, we were up pretty high. I don't know if we've stayed there. Jana might have a little more details on that. I guess she's been heading that up. So thanks, Jana. Okay, so make sure you respond, because that money really does make a difference for the county and the town. So we want to make sure you get counted. All right, and then staff updates. Oh, you can provide. So 2020census.gov is where you go, or you can do it by phone at 844-330-2020. And your personal information is really protected. It's basically residential. There wasn't a whole lot of personal information on there. It was pretty clean cut. All right, so our staff updates. Next item is so capital purchase update. So Joe, did you want to take that?
Yeah, I do. I really, this was just for informational purposes. I just wanted to give everybody kind of an idea of where we stood on all of our capital projects. So the kind of the form you see there in front of you is really just an excerpt from our capital improvements plan that was approved along with the FY 2021 budget. So again, just to go through these real quickly. So the general government category, the reason I have those kind of categorized as yellow is we are still looking at some of the details on all of this. And as the mayor kind of mentioned, we're looking at different options for technology upgrades there to the council chambers. So some of this money actually might get reallocated or moved around so that we can continue to do maybe some sort of hybrid of in-person meetings and virtual, and then have that be expanded so that it could be, assuming we all do return to normal one day, we can have really just increased technology capabilities there within the council chambers. So that might actually affect how the layout of the room is and what type of furniture we might want in there. So we haven't pulled the trigger on any of that because we actually are working with CMC to kind of help us through those technology upgrades that we may need to do in there. As far as public safety goes, we have ordered the new vehicle along with the new portable radios for all of our guys in the field. Along with, well, once we get the new vehicle, the new camera will also be, the new vehicle camera will be installed as well. One thing I wanted to touch on with the cameras is, like any other technology, what we're learning now is we did have a replacement plan for all of these in-vehicle cameras, which I think we had 2 more in next fiscal year, and then another one, 2 fiscal years from now. But again, like I said, with technology, as everybody knows, eventually they become obsolete. Some of the operating systems that these cameras run on are no longer supported and become, I guess, more difficult to use on a regular basis. And again, these are kind of critical infrastructure for our police service. So here within the next few months, we'll likely bring a request to go ahead and speed up the replacement of those vehicle cameras. We did already approve the funding for all of these, again, just in future fiscal years. So when we renewed or changed some of our fund balance policies, we did set aside funding for really our entire capital improvement plan. It just we didn't expect to spend it all in obviously in year 1, but again, we're working through that right now. We're trying to figure out exactly what we need, but we likely will have to spend more money on vehicle cameras sooner rather than later than we originally expected. As far as public works goes, there's the skid steer and the slope mower. Those were both state biddable items that we were able to pull pretty quickly. So we're moving forward with those purchases. As far as the small dump truck that we want to replace and the hydraulic system, both of those were coming in a little higher than expected as far as cost goes on the state bid side. So we're going to try to actually bid the small dump truck by itself, just through our typical bidding process. Hopefully we can get some better pricing and see where that lands. So once we get updated numbers on that, we still may proceed, but at least on the state side, the state bid side, there was a funding gap in what we requested and what the numbers were coming in at tune of almost $12,000. So we're hoping if we bid it ourselves, maybe we can get something a little more dialed in and maybe a little more in line with what we expected. Then we haven't moved forward at all on the maintenance garage doors or the new dumpsters, again, just because we want to see how some of those other purchases within those departments come in before we spend any additional funding. Streets and transportation, we actually did a really good job with our road repaving. Mark did a great job kind of administering that project. So all of our planned repaving efforts for current fiscal year have already been completed, with the striping hopefully to be installed here in the next few days, and certainly by the end of the week. A couple of minor sidewalk projects that we still want to try to accomplish this fiscal year. Along with, I know I've had several questions about the one here on Main Street near the creamery there at the south side of Main Street. Again, that's still on the schedule, hopefully in the next coming weeks, to go ahead and finish that. And then the only parks project for this year is the work on the South Linear Trail, or the south portion of the Linear Trail. That's actually a grant project. So we've applied for all of the funding through the county. There's another step that we actually have to apply for through the state. But again, we're working that program, and as soon as funding becomes available, we'll go ahead and pull the trigger on those trail upgrades. So again, just a quick snapshot. I wanted to let you guys know kind of where we stood with all of our capital projects that have been approved this year. That's all I had.
Treasurer's report, Craig.
Good evening, everybody. Hopefully you're still awake here. Hopefully you got the treasurer's report. Seems like a few of you didn't get the public safety report. I don't know, Mark, did you get the treasurer's report? Hopefully you did. Obviously, it's the beginning of the new fiscal year. We're off to a little bit of a slow start. I mean, that's not surprising considering July can be pretty slow, especially in terms of the revenue side of the coin. Actually, Carrie, can you move like 2 pages down possibly? You can? Okay. That's the balance sheet. It's not really relevant in terms of knowing what we're doing with the budget. We're about 33 under right now. Basically, that's because the revenue was pretty much flat, except for we did get the town county agreement monies. That was nice to, because usually that comes in about August, so we got that already, which was the 259 611. You see down in intergovernment, if you got that open. A lot of the weakness right now is just in terms of the property taxes, the real estate taxes. Historically, we usually get that around August, September, October. Last year, that's when we got them. They're decent amounts. I mean, by like the end of October, we had gotten almost $1 million in. So any day now, we should be obviously getting some of that in. That'll be quite helpful in maintaining the pace. Also, in terms of some of the intergovernmental revenues, they come in later. They come in like November-ish, December. So we'll have to wait a little bit on those. In terms of expenses, they're pretty much online. I think the only thing we had that was a little, I guess, a timing issue was we did demolition of the girls' shelter. We were hoping to get that expenses in fiscal year 20. It didn't happen. We finally got that project done just recently, so it kind of fell into fiscal year 21. So kind of wasn't expected for that. That was about 18 grand. So we're kind of over budget in that particular category. But that's right now, that's the only area right now that we're over budget.
And just to build on that real quick for everybody's information, really, is there were several grant funded projects that we had in last fiscal year that did not get completed. So when we do our first budget revision for this fiscal year, we'll actually pull all of those, both the expenses and the revenues, into our current budget. So it won't look so out of whack the way it is. But again, this isn't necessarily increasing. This is not additional funds. These have been projects that have been previously approved and previously funded. We just didn't expense it in FY20, so we just have to pull them over to FY21.
So that kind of wraps up right now the treasurer's report at this point in time. If anybody has any questions, anyone has any questions at the moment? If not, certainly if you have later, as always, you can always email me and I'll be more than happy to answer any questions you may have. But at this point, I'd just like to present the treasurer's report to the council.
Okay, any questions for Craig?
Good job, Craig.
Yeah, good job.
Motion
Would
to
like-
approve.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
A motion to approve the July 2020 treasurer's report.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, that's approved. Craig, did you have any more comment?
Oh, no, it was actually just a comment. Wanted to thank Julie as well for letting me my first tournament and got to meet everybody a little bit more. And it was kind of a lot of fun on Friday. And I really appreciate having the opportunity to do so. I'd like to have the opportunity maybe to pick my own team next year, if that's possible. I don't know. Or well, the mayor's short game is vicious. He's got a great short game.
Nice.
You're quite the pro, but he's already trying to ditch us. Darn it.
That was fun. I'll do it again. Same team. It's fine.
Yeah. He's quite the golfer, but look, he's trying to cut off the dead wood for next year. Darn it.
Right. We'll take you next year, Craig.
Yeah. I was gonna say no. Well, thanks for carrying us, man.
It was fun.
Yeah, we had a good time. Thanks.
Mayor's good sport.
Yeah. Thanks for the lessons. Yeah, you gave me a lot of good.
Wear a hat next time, Mr. Mayor.
What's that?
Wear a hat next time.
Yeah, I learned that. Believe me, I learned now. I got the sunblock in the bag and a hat. That's going with you no matter what happens. So you only get that once. All right. Okay, so that's our next item then. If we can get back, let me see where my agenda went off to. All right.
Public safety report.
Yep. So we're public safety. Yep, Chief.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
I would like to echo those comments about the golf tournament. It was a great opportunity for me and the officers to play together, and we appreciate the town sponsoring us and allowing us to put that foursome in. So I'm looking forward to it next year. All right, let's talk about the calls for service covering the period July 6th through August 2nd. You can see we had quite a few events, 708 to be exact. Some of the highlights are a large number of patrol checks, which as you'll see later in some of the incident reports, proved to be crucial in discovering some of these graffiti incidents that I'll talk about here in a minute. But 452 patrol checks, 40 foot patrols, 6 community policing events, and 14 assist other agency. Again, a total of 708 events for that period of July 6th through August 2nd. Any questions about any of those events or any of the 26 incident reports that we completed during that period, which should be the second and third page of your packet? Nothing.
If you're going to cover the graffiti thing, I would like to get a little more background on that, but I'll let you're covering that later.
Yeah, kind of a recurring problem, particularly at Warfield and the Cooper Park. As you all will recall from the past, those have been favorite spots for what we consider to be mostly juveniles tagging the buildings and the tunnel. So it's happened again on several occasions. We believe that they're related just by the nature of the tag and the graffiti. It's a script-like tag it's very unique, and it has shown up in more than one occasion. So we think they're definitely related. Even subsequent to this public safety report, we've had several over the weekend, and actually one reported today in town. So I've directed all of the officers to be on alert, particularly during the evenings, particularly if you see juveniles out and about. Try to develop probable cause to, search backpacks or cars, obviously looking for paint cans, stop and ID anybody that's seen, particularly in the area of Warfield or Cooper Park after dark. And in addition to that, we've actually installed several cameras, and we're in the process of purchasing more. I won't go into all the details about the cameras for obvious reasons, but we will have multiple cameras at multiple locations that I hope will assist us in not only deterring, but potentially apprehending the people responsible for this destruction of property. Any follow-up?
One other quick question as far as the Warfield goes. I mean, and I guess we can talk about this too, but I was just curious about have you had any additional conversations with the developer over there about security as far as like fencing or any of that stuff? Has that sort of went cold, or was there any more conversations about that?
There hasn't been any recent conversations. As you will recall, quite some time ago, Steve invited us over to meet with him to discuss security procedures there at Warfield Complex. That's when we talked about the fencing, the lighting, the cameras. Since that time, really the only thing that they have done is the fencing so far. We're kind of taking it upon ourselves to put up some of these cameras. But again, it's really going to come down to increasing our patrol checks, and the officers are already doing a great job. In fact, you'll notice in the package down towards the end of page 2, we actually caught 3 juveniles that were in Warfield late at night back on July 31st. But they didn't all they had was flashlights. There was no paint or no other indication that they were tagging or doing any damage. But, we're doing the best we can with the resources we have to be, at all places at all times. But obviously, we can't be everywhere 24/7. But I think our officers are doing a great job of proactively checking these locations, to include now the apple butter factory, which was tagged here recently on the back of it, the back side of it. But it's just a matter of, again, keeping our patrol checks up and hoping to get lucky, catch somebody in the act. Certainly, we will be placing charges against anybody we catch. And hopefully with these cameras, that'll be an asset to us. So I'll certainly keep you up to speed on any developments in that area.
Great, thanks. So there is fencing over at Warfield, like around the buildings?
There is. Around the quad, there is fencing.
Okay, good. All right. So has that
But
been?
lighting would be huge. And of course, a more professional video security system would certainly be a valuable asset to us as well as them. But we're just not there yet.
Has the fencing around the quad been effective? Are people breaching that, or has that been?
For the most part, it has, but there have been cases where people have been able to breach it. But to their credit, I think in that one particular case where somebody was able to squeeze through, when we brought it to their attention, they were able to fix that. So they have been responsive in that regard.
Okay, good.
Any other questions for me?
Any other questions for the chief? Anybody? All right, Chief. Yeah, well, thank you so much.
Welcome.
We appreciate it.
We'll stay on it.
All right, I think that just had everything in it. So I think, council committee reports. Do we have any updates on those? Anybody want to start?
I'll go first. A pretty quick one with Raincliff Homeowners Association. There was a meeting on July 23rd. We did the meeting via GoTo meeting, and they invited me to it. I think they didn't invite me to the last one, so I might have gotten skipped over there. The next meeting should be in September, although I found out about that one fairly last minute in July, and so that's just kind of how we're working it right now with COVID. One issue that came up was they needed some help with a pavilion and getting the not contract
permit done.
The permit, I'm sorry, the permit through, and Joe helped out with that. Yeah, I really appreciate the efforts there, Joe, and I believe that they should be moving forward. I checked in with the president again today. He got back to me tonight, and he said that they're good to go. That's it. Thanks.
Great. Thanks, Jeremiah. I think it's been very productive having you working with them. So thanks. It's been good. Anything from planning, Mark?
I think that's enough.
No, but I don't know if the subcommittee that Joe is more privy to happened, but there was no meeting, so there was not. I have nothing specific planning. Joe, was there anything that you might want to pass on to us all?
I do, just to again keep everybody abreast of the comprehensive plan rewrite that's going on. Again, stakeholder interviews are being scheduled kind of as we speak. I actually just got an email from Troy over at Michael Baker International just this evening. So again, they're working on getting those scheduled. As I might have mentioned in an email before, but I'll go ahead and mention it again now. Each of you will be contacted by Michael Baker to schedule some sort of individual interviews. These could be done either virtually or in person, whichever you prefer. Again, Michael Baker and those folks over there can kind of accommodate however you want. But again, they do want to get your perspectives on the town and how we want this comprehensive plan to be and what kind of goals and everything we want to set moving forward for the next 10 years or so. So be on the lookout for those emails. Our next comprehensive plan steering committee meeting is going to be August 20th. So I think that's next Thursday. Again, we'll send out the agenda and meeting link to everybody if you guys want to listen in.
Great, thank you. And then anything HTC, Anna?
Yes, we met on July the 28th. We only had, I don't know if it's an application, but it was a continuation of an application. Lennar Homes had requested additional colors. We came and approved 3 additional colors. I don't know the names of the colors offhand, but one is a gray, one is like a mossy green, and one is like a tannish brown. That was it. And I'm not sure if there's any applications for our next meeting, which should be held on August the 25th. There is. So I'll let you know after that meeting's complete.
Okay, great. And then Al, how's the business thing going?
The Main Street merchants, we met with Rothstein on July 22nd. It was basically a very informal meeting. The commissioner expressed the businesses to get going with the Carroll Rebound Grant because there was still a lot of money left at that point in time. Much discussion about who's eligible for that grant. They had a little social distancing roundtable, just going through ideas for businesses and talking to the commissioner about how to implement some of the social distancing rules. And then there was like a think tank type of thing where how the county could help out small businesses. I think there was some pretty good ideas about that. I'm not sure if he implemented some of that, but I think we'll find out. The next meeting with Commissioner Rothstein is August 19th, and they did not have a Main Street merchant meeting in July, so the next one is the last the last Friday in August.
Okay, and we did have some concerns about, we got a couple of complaints about masking and not social distancing. So we're trying to work with the business owners to hopefully address that stuff so it doesn't become a big issue. But I think that'll be part of the conversation on the 19th with Ed as well.
Yeah,
Actually, Ian, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say there was an email sent out, I think it was probably about a week and a half ago, just to stay vigilant with the masks because nobody wants to see the numbers go up in Carroll County. So go ahead, Stacey, I'll let you talk.
Actually, it's to that regard, I'd like to comment. It was brought to my attention that email, that you had sent the email to the merchant group. And I had some feedback that I think could be expected when the entire group was addressed, if there is a specific concern related to a specific event, or I guess this is my question. The concern that was expressed to the entire group and the desire for us all to stay vigilant and for the merchants as business owners to do so and encourage their patrons to follow the CDC's guidelines and our Carroll County Health Department guidelines. The feedback that I got from a few merchants was that they were concerned that the email was sent to them without being aware of if there was anything specific that had taken place or any particular complaints to the Carroll County Health Department that would obviously pertain to a particular location. And if that were the case, my concern would be that particular, if there is something going on that's of concern that precipitated the email, then I think that needs to be addressed directly. And I think that the merchant group as a whole would probably be would benefit most by a direct approach. I think it had a few in concern, and I, for one, have made my own observations, and I 99.9% of the time, and in all cases other than a few, I have seen all merchants following those guidelines and staying vigilant. I would like to. I would like to.
We agree. We're absolutely going to have those. And I'm hoping that as many people can join that conversation on the 19th. The reason for the generality is to not call out individuals and sort of shame them. You know, that wasn't the intent. The intent was to kind of give a reminder to everybody to follow. But we can certainly share and the chief's had a couple complaints himself. So and then there's been some following that. So, I mean, so yeah, we're going to have the conversation hopefully with the business folks and tell them exactly what the complaints are. I just didn't think it was appropriate to like air everybody's dirty laundry with every business person. You know what I mean? But maybe it is. I don't know.
Well, I mean, I have just found that good leadership includes addressing directly those that are needing to be addressed. And when a group is addressed, when there's only a specific concern or specific offender or someone that needs to be addressed directly, what that does is it causes unnecessary angst, and it also causes you know, a little dissension in the ranks. And
okay,
that's my feedback, and I think that I'm bringing that to you on behalf of the other merchants that came to me.
Yeah, we saw the response. So I think the plan was, one of the things me and Al wanted to do, because one of the people who had raised the concern was Commissioner Rothstein. So we wanted to talk to him and find out exactly what that was. So now that we've done that, and then on the 19th, we were going to talk with everybody and say, here's what we're hearing. So it's not a secret, you know what I mean? We were just trying not to like, I don't know, I guess. So you're right. Probably would have been better off just to call it out, right?
Just to the person that needs to be spoken to, if that's the case. I mean, the others don't even need to know about that, right?
Yeah, we
Except that,
wanted to share the reminder with everybody so that it, you know, but at the same time, we can call out those individuals as well. I mean, it makes sense. So that was kind of the intent, was to say, hey, you know, we're not saying, and also some of these were verbal complaints. These aren't to the health department. These are.
that was my next question. Have there been,
Right.
are you aware of formal complaints to the health department in Carroll County?
I am not. So how about you, Joe? Are you aware of formal complaints to the health department?
Nothing formal. I do know that the health department, and Chief, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but haven't we heard from the health department directly that they have received complaints? Again, it might just be a phone call. It might not necessarily be something that's.
That is correct. The information came from the health department that we in turn then looked into.
So again,
So
these
there were
aren't written
complaints made
complaints.
by.
It's just a phone call. Yeah.
Okay, but so concerns were expressed regarding a particular location or event to our Carroll County Health Department, and then that was relayed to you, Chief.
Correct.
That's information that is incredibly concerning to me. and should be nipped in the bud and should be addressed, and I'm sure you're taking care of it, but if more than a week has passed even between that and a direct address of this problem, I'm disheartened by it because I've actually seen it recur. What my concern has recurred now 3 times. So.
Right, yeah. So there's definitely one, you know, so, but again, we'll talk about that on the 19th.
That's fine. Thank you.
We'll meet with the business, and we'll deal with it head on, you know? So,
okay.
So,
Very cool.
a question from me in reference to it, because it's also concerning to me. Is there any reason we wouldn't just build a protocol for these types of issues? That, I mean, it sounds like, Chief, you already have one. So is there a town protocol for how, when a health department complaint comes in, how an informal complaint comes in? I mean, how are we dealing with those? Just so that we're all clear, just in case we also get asked.
I don't think there's a town protocol, but there's a statewide protocol that requires, that empowers any police officer to take enforcement action upon receiving a complaint and investigating a complaint of the governor's executive orders.
So, I mean, is this something that we could look into for, like, if Joe gets I imagine, Joe, that what you're doing is anytime you get a complaint, you talk to the chief about it, but I don't know what that process is.
Yeah, I mean, we can certainly put together, I mean, again, if we put together a formal policy or protocol, it would probably be very similar to what the state already requires, in that,
sure,
you know, once we receive something, we're required to at least go to that business and inform them of the complaint and remind them of the rules and regulations that are currently being required right now. Obviously, if you continue to get those complaints, then eventually you get to a point where you start writing citations and you start, you know, fining these people for, you know, continued violation. Again, nobody really wants to do that, but again, if push comes to shove and you have to, people continually ignore the rules, they're really putting everybody at risk. So, you know, again, that's kind of been the protocol that we've been following. But again, we're happy to put together a kind of a formal policy so that you guys can see kind of, you know, what rules we do follow.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I appreciate that, Joe and Chief. Thanks for trying to, I know it's a tough thing to navigate, and we do think overall everybody's doing a really good job complying. So, you know, overall, it's been really good. So I think the business owners really as a group need to be commended for the effort.
Yes.
Things have been done very well. So to have just a couple of sporadic complaints, I think is actually pretty good, but we can address them directly and then, you know, try to eliminate it because we want to have 0, you know, that's the goal, right? So we'll talk with them on the 19th. And then if, you know, we can hopefully clarify everything and get us back on track, 100% compliance.
So I just have my Spark report, if you don't mind, real quick.
Sure, go for it.
Thank you. So I wanted to announce, well, I'll do that last. The Spark is purchasing or has recently purchased a new movie screen for our better and bigger viewing pleasure. Our current screen is coming up on 11 years old. This will be its 11th season. And we've increased the size of the current screen from 12:7 to 16:9. So that'll give us some better opportunity for larger crowds. Since things have become in the recent years much more popular. Our movies have become much more popular, and currently we're finally getting our volunteer and event volunteer vests. They're to arrive tomorrow. We didn't get them in time for the Saturday's movie, but and I actually would defer to Jana. I don't know, Jana, have you heard anything about the turnout at the movie on Saturday?
I have not spoken to anybody yet.
Okay,
but I will
haven't
email
either.
tomorrow and see what I can find out.
That'd be great. Thank you. I usually reach out. I had a family emergency and it distracted me. So, and then the other item I wanted to mention was our community cleanup. Let me pull up my flyer for our flyer. It's not mine. Our annual Parks and Rec litter cleanup is going to be Saturday, August 29th at 9 a.m. till 12 p.m. or as long as your heart's content, you can pick litter. But we're meeting at 9 at the townhouse, and we'll provide trash bags. We would encourage anybody who's interested in beautifying our already beautiful town to bring some heavy work gloves and some proper footwear and some hats and some sunblock. And that we don't have.
Sunscreen is highly recommended.
Sunscreen is highly recommended, and or a hat, right, Ian?
Yeah.
So anyway, we're meeting at the townhouse at 9 o'clock on the 29th of August, and there will be we'll send that out. We will ask that staff send that reminder out, announcement out to the community when appropriate. That's it.
The sun won't even be up at 9 o'clock, Stacy.
Oh, it was this morning.
Yeah. Well, and so thanks for that. It's always a good event, man. We always get a lot of trash done. So are we going, where's the place this year? Is it South?
So we haven't quite decided on where we're going to disperse to. We just know our gathering point. We have a meeting on the 28th, which is the day before. So we're probably going to put our thinking caps on the night before at our meeting and get a good handle on where we are most needed. I have my own ideas, but nobody wants to walk along the railroad tracks because it's apparently illegal and dangerous, but it's really needed.
It always looks good too when you do that. So we've been illegally and dangerously cleaning up that trash for a little while now, but
yes, I do it every week.
Yeah. Ian and I have been doing it for the past couple of years, climbing up those rocks.
Yeah.
At your own risk.
Yes. Listen for the whistle.
Mm-hmm.
All righty. Well, thank you for that. Yeah, there's no update on the schoolhouse and the gatehouse yet, but we'll hopefully have something for you by next week. Other than that, I think that's it, right? We covered everybody. We didn't forget anybody, did we? Okay. All right. So that's about it, right? There's nothing on the closed executive session, so we're good. So we just need a motion to adjourn then.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right. Well, thank you all for coming and your participation. Very much appreciated. And we will see you soon.
I think we should have a reprise of that video that with the volume this time.
Yeah.
You can see that on Facebook, Stacy.
All right. All right.
Good stuff.
Listen, my 15 minutes is only going to happen once, and I feel like I got cheated.
Right.
Good night, you guys.
Good night, everyone.
If you could have got Sergeant Gilmore to dance in there, that would have been the turn.